Well, good morning.
Morning.
This feels like COVID when we were allowed to have, 7 people in the sanctuary and everybody else was on Zoom. A little more than 7 here today. My name's Pam Griffin-Hody. I'm a lay leader and my pronouns are she and her. And it is my pleasure to welcome all of you here and on Zoom to the Universalist Unitarian community of Halifax. And we are an open-minded, open-hearted spiritual community for curious and compassionate seekers. As UUs, we recognize that the truths of the universe are too complex to be summed up in any one religious tradition's dogma. So instead of focusing on creeds and beliefs here, we focus on cultivating relationships, community, and responsible action in this life. And if you're new here, welcome. And if you're feeling new, welcome. If you haven't been here for a while, we welcome you. And if your name's not on the email distribution list and you would like it to be, you can put your email address in the book in the ballroom. And there'll be coffee and tea, hopefully, after the service, and we'll get to know each other more. And I draw your attention to the announcements in the order of service and remind you that our Christmas Eve candlelight service on Tuesday begins at 3 o'clock. And I decided to put the offertory at the very beginning of the service, just because it doesn't interrupt the service, not because it's important. And I wanted to say that when I was a child and a teen and a young adult in a different religious tradition, the Christmas offering was very much one traditionally of a special gift. So if any memory of being elsewhere touches you, please feel free to illustrate it in the offertory. I say that tongue in cheek, but please know that as important as money is to pay for heat and lights and all sorts, nobody's worth or dignity is in any way measured by the amount of money that they have or don't have to give. So during the offering, we invite you to offer what you can if you can. And today, any undesignated money in our collection will go to the work of this community. And if you don't carry cash, you can donate easy peasy by e-transfer to treasurer@uuch.ca. You can play anything, Tristan, for a couple minutes. Thanks, Tristan. Thanks. As we prepare ourselves to enter into sacred space, we must first acknowledge the truth of this land. The peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory, Mi'kma'ki, remind us that we are all treaty people, so we commit ourselves to collaboratively move towards truth, reconciliation, and equity for the Indigenous, Black, and other communities of color who continue to experience systemic oppression in our communities. And Mary Lou has our chalice lighting this morning. I'll light the chalice.
We light our chalice with these words from Reverend Sarah Richards. O come all ye faithful, and doubtful, and joyful, and blue, Mary and Joseph, Rudolph and Frosty, and me and you. To hear Christmas stories, some old and some new, reminding us that love, hope, and mystery are true. Well done.
Thank you.
So last night, there was a solstice service. It was so much fun and beautiful. Tuesday afternoon, we will have our traditional candlelight service for Christmas Eve. And today's service is a very simple lay-led service of readings and carols. I have 2 stories of Christmas memories and 3 excerpts from literature, each well-known Christmas stories written by Unitarians. I left them as a surprise in the order of service. It's just called Unitarian 1, 2, and 3. I hope you enjoy. So here's the first story. And this one I wrote specifically for the children and the children in all of us. I was 5. Singing was a big thing. My father had a beautiful voice, and he sang tenor in a church choir just a few blocks from here at the Grand Parade, St. Paul's. But as soon as September came, we sang carols in the car every day on the drive to school and on the drive home. Santa Claus used to arrive for a visit in Halifax by train, which came to a store called Simpson's. And if you are geographically inclined and not as old as me, it's where the Walmart on Mumford Road is now. The train tracks go behind there. And Santa arrived by train. We were told that he was leaving his reindeer to rest. Besides, it was early December in Halifax, and it's snow today, but I can tell you that it's pretty rare for there to be snow in early December in Halifax, so sleigh wouldn't work anyway. But even though there was no snow, sometimes it was really, really cold, and I was really little. And my father would warm me up by dancing, and since it's easier to dance with music, he'd sing. In those days, there was no real way to transport recorded music, so you had to make your own. And the photo on your order of service was taken just after the singing and dancing, when Santa finally arrived and I finally got to see him. And you can tell by the expression in my face that that was the real Santa that showed up in Halifax on that cold December day in 1967. And it was the Christmas singing that stayed with my father as the rest of his memories started going with dementia. And his birthday was just before Christmas, so in our family, Christmas started with a bang on the 19th of December. And on his 75th, we went to a restaurant downtown that had a piano bar in the attached lounge. And after dinner, he insisted on going into the lounge, and he got the pianist to play Christmas carols of his choosing, and he and I sang like we were the only people in the world. And all the other people in the lounge that night slowly started to sing along, and it was magical. And when I think about Christmas presents of the past, I can think and remember all kinds of things. One Christmas I got a puppy. One Christmas I got a Malibu Barbie. I remember that, being so excited. But honestly, it's the gift of music that stays with me, because every year when I hear the songs my father used to sing, I can hear his voice. That's an incredible gift. Now, Dad would have turned 103 on Thursday, so let's sing one of the carols that he and I used to sing, but let's sing it with the abandoned joy of a 5-year-old, cold and waiting for Santa. Joy to the World. The lyrics are all going to be up on this screen. Different lyrics are lyrics, but same tune. Joy to the World.
joy to the earth, and let earth their birds employ. Will be a thousand for children. Repeat the sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy. No more let's sing the tones. North or west, each face the ground. Let go the sense of variation. As far as love is bound, as far as progress.
We bring our hearts into this sacred space of community and we open them up to each other, for each other, so that those of us who carry pain might be comforted by the presence of a loving community, and so that those who are happy and well might share our joy and see it multiply in others. And so those of us who carry complex truths, whatever they may be, might find a welcoming space to process and make meaning of all that life brings. This, our community well, holds all our stories. It is the place we come to be held and loved. The water reminds us of our connection to each other, to all life, to the earth itself. So if you have a story, a joy, sorrow, or complex truth on your heart that needs to be spoken in community, we invite you to share and to drop a stone into our well of community to mark your story and remind you that we are not alone. And anybody who is who's putting a stone in the well should use the handheld mic so that the people on Zoom can hear you.
I'll go.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mike. And 10 years ago, just right around now, my father passed away. And I just came from visiting my mother in Antigonish. And Dad passed away in a care home. And he was 83. My mother just turned 89. I was there for her birthday. And I'm going to go back and spend Christmas with her. So it's a happy and sad story at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Put your stone in the well,
right.
please.
I just have a question. Okay. Thank you very much. Who is the young person playing the piano?
His name's Tristan.
Tristan.
His name is Tristan.
Tristan, the
Okay,
key tickler.
thank you. And for the gentleman who sometimes sing, I have a just turned 4-year-old great-grandson who declared that when his legs are long enough, he will play the organ.
on Zoom?
No.
Yes.
Well, there's people on Zoom, yes, but not for this.
Could I add one? Yeah, and the microphone's muted and
Oh,
it's not on. It's gotta be on.
Is it on?
it's on.
Press the yellow button to turn the light off.
When the light's on, it's on.
Earth to faith.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
This morning, as I attempted to release my windshield wipers that were encased in ice, unsuccessfully I might add, I bitched and I groused and I swore, and I thought, oh, the quality of your problems. Just shut up. Here's for the bigger problems.
That definitely merits a
Don't sweat
stone.
the small
A
stuff.
big stone.
We also have Sam online.
Okay.
Yeah, I just appreciate putting a stone in.
Mary Lou, would you
Sam,
say
go
Sam?
ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry?
Hello? There we go. Yeah, I just appreciate if we could put a stone in just for the people who aren't going to be able to make it home for the holidays this year.
And I add one more
I'll put a
stone.
stone in for Sam.
Pam is adding one more stone
Thank you.
for all the joys, sorrows, and complex truths that remain in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, the ones that words cannot express, and the ones that are still in formation.
I'm not a lot taller than I was when I was 5. So our first reading from Unitarian number 1, his name was Charles Dickens, and he wrote A Christmas Carol. I don't know what to do, cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath and making a perfect twit of himself with his stockings. I am as light as a feather, I am as happy as an angel, I am as merry as a schoolboy, I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello there, hello. He had frisked into the living room and was now standing there, perfectly winded. Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh. The father of a long, long line of brilliant laughs. He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, clear, bright, jovial, stirring cold. Cold piping for the blood to dance to. Golden sunlight, heavenly sky. What's today? Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes. Huh? Returned the boy. What's today, my fine fellow? Said Scrooge. Today, replied the boy, why, it's Christmas Day. Christmas Day, said Scrooge. I haven't missed it. I haven't missed it. They did it all in one night. He dressed himself all in his best and at last got out into the streets. The people by this time were pouring forth as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present. And walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded every one with a delighted smile. Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you. And Scrooge said afterwards that of all the blithe sounds he had ever heard, those were the blithest in his ears. Scrooge himself became as good a friend and as good a master and as good a man as the good old city knew. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh and little heeded them, for he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good, at which some people did not have their fill of laughter in the outset. And knowing that such as these would be blind anyway, he thought it quite as well that they should wrinkle up their eyes in grins and have the malady in less than attractive forms. His own heart laughed, and that was quite good enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. And our carol match with this reading was also written by a Unitarian minister John Hanley Morgan. Number 224, Let Christmas Come. And the words will be up on the screen. And then Mary Lou will read.
I love your sweater. It's gorgeous.
Unitarian number 2 is Louisa M. Alcott. And this reading is from Little Women. It's another childhood thing. I think that's when we all read Little Women. Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents, grumbled Joe, lying on the rug. It's so dreadful to be poor, sighed Meg, looking down at her old dress. I don't think it's fair that for some girls to have plenty of pretty things and other girls nothing at all, added little Amy with an injured sniff. We've got father and mother and each other, said Beth contentedly from her corner. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Meg said in an altered tone, you know the reason Mother proposed not having any presents this year was because it is going to be a hard winter for everyone, and she thinks we ought not to spend money for pleasure when our men are suffering so in the army. We can't do much, but we can make our little sacrifices and ought to do it gladly. But I'm afraid I don't, said Meg, and shook her head as she thought regretfully of all the pretty things she wanted. But I don't think the little we should spend would do any good. We've each got $1, and the army wouldn't be much help by our giving that. Mother didn't say anything about our money, and she won't wish us to give up everything. Let's each buy what we want and have a little fun. I'm sure we've worked hard enough to earn it. Don't peck at one another, children. Don't you wish we had the money Papa lost when we were little? Joe, dear me, how happy and good we'd be if we had no worries, said Meg, who could remember better times. You said the other day you thought we were a deal happier than the King children, for they were fighting and fretting all the time in spite of all their money. So I did, Beth. Well, I think we are, for though we do have to work, we make fun of ourselves and are a pretty jolly set, as Joe would say. The clock struck 6, and, having swept up the hearth, Beth put a pair of slippers down to warm. Somehow the sight of the old shoes had a good effect upon the girls, for Mother was coming, and everyone brightened to welcome her. Meg stopped lecturing and lighted the lamp. Amy got out of the easy chair without being asked, and Joe forgot how tired she was. She sat up and held the slippers nearer to the fire. You are quite warm out. Marmee must have a new pair. I thought I'd get her some with my dollar, said Beth. No, I shall, cried Amy. I'm the oldest, began Meg, but Joe cut in with a decided, I'm the man of the family now that Papa is away, and I shall provide the slippers, for he told me to take special care of Mother while he was gone. I'll tell you what we'll do, said Beth. Let's each get her something for Christmas and not get anything for ourselves. Everyone thought soberly for a minute. Then Meg announced, as if the idea was suggested by the sight of her own pretty hands, I shall give her a nice pair of gloves. Army shoes best to be had, cried Joe. Some handkerchiefs, all hemmed, said Beth. I'll get a little bottle of cologne. She likes it, and it won't cost much, and I'll have some left to buy my pencils, added Amy. How will we give the things? Asked Meg. Put them on the table and bring her in and see her open the bundles, answered Joe. Let Marmee think we are getting things for ourselves and then surprise her. And the carol, number 226, People Look East.
So our final reading, Unitarian number 3. Did you know that Theodore Geisel was a Unitarian? I didn't know it until recently. You might know him by his pen name, Dr. Seuss. So this reading is from the How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas. The whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one knows quite the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town, for he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early and they'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, noise, noise. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing and they'd sing and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. In case you don't know the story, he went to a great effort to disguise himself as Santa and his dog as a reindeer and stole everything and took it home. And then, pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was Grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two, and the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, were singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. And we're going to sing Deck the Halls loudly. We're going to, like we're the Who's, and it's Christmas morning. 2:35 if you want a hymn book, but the words will be on the screen. when I was a university student, there was an annual tradition of reading A Child's Christmas in Wales aloud by a fireplace that existed in one of the residences, and with hot beverages and snacks, and it was quite lovely. But the poem itself brings back other memories. And it's this bit at the beginning. One Christmas was so much like the other in those years around the sea town corner now, out of all sound except the distant speaking of the voices I sometimes hear a moment before sleep, that I can never remember whether it snowed for 6 days and 6 nights when I was 12, or whether it snowed for 12 days and 12 nights when I was 6. All the Christmases roll down towards the two-tongued sea, like a cold and headlong moon bundling down the sky that was our street, and they stop at the rim of the ice-edged, fish-freezing waves. It was snowing. It was always snowing at Christmas. So says Dylan in his childhood in Wales in the 30s, I think. My own childhood Christmas memories revolved around 2 sea towns, Halifax and Graminan Island. So all my childhood memories indeed rolled down towards the two-tongued sea. And Christmas at Halifax always included a trip down to the harbor to see all the ships with their Christmas lights. And you can still do this, the best view being the old bridge, so get someone else to drive. They're never as bright as they were in my childhood memories. The ice-edge, fish-freezing waves of Thomas's Welsh childhood have nothing on the rough Bay and Funday in that big old black ferry, and the year my mother was beyond being afraid of the rough seas and just sat there silently crying as the ferry turned over and she was going right on her side. And they came around and they roped all the chairs and the tables to the floor, and we had to hang on to the table because the chairs were moving. And that was the Christmas that I was old enough to understand the danger of those waves becoming griffin freezing ones, but still young enough, or perhaps just not cynical enough, to believe my father when he looked at my fear and said straight in my eyes, "The captain wouldn't take her out if it wasn't safe." There was later an inquiry. But those seas gave treasures as well. And on each year on Boxing Day morning, enough live lobsters magically appeared at my grandmother's door to feed as many people who were there in any given year. And in my memories, it was always snowing. But I think those must be false, because in truth, I can remember distinctly only 2 white Christmases. One when I was a teenager and I plowed through a waist-high snowy field to get to my cousin's house on Christmas Day. And one when I was a child and I spent the afternoon building a snowman while yell singing the lyrics to Frosty at the top of my lungs. I was convinced that if I built a snowman on Christmas Day that it would come to life. I don't know if that's true, because once I had the snow structure in place, I begged my mother for a carrot and my father to find me some coal. My mother gave me a carrot, and my father obligingly dug out some charcoal briquettes in the garage. But my mother called us to Christmas dinner before I could finish the snowman. And the next day when I finished it, I was convinced that he hadn't come to life on Christmas Day because I hadn't put the coal in while it was still Christmas. Never mind, I didn't have a top hat, so I don't know what was going through my mind. But in all honesty, both my sea towns are known more for green Christmases. This Christmas may or may not tell truth to that, except it's supposed to rain before Wednesday, so we'll see. This year looks like it might be different, but the memories are golden. And our final carol, which is also one I associate with my father, who I think, if he had been Catholic, would have lobbied to beatify the blessed Bing Crosby, is White Christmas.
extinguish our chalice today, may we remember Christmases past. We honor Christmas present, and we pledge ourselves to bring peace and joy to Christmases yet to come.
Thank you.
That's it.